Hello, my name is Dr. Dunn, and I'll be telling you today about how vitamin B12 is absorbed. The dietary intake comes first. The dietary cobalamin B12 bound to enzymes in animal protein. Then it goes to the stomach. The cobalamin is released by HCI and pepsin that digests the binding protein. The free cobalamin forms a stable complex with R binder, a glycoprotein secreted in saliva or by the stomach. The intrinsic factor, or the IF, another glycoprotein that binds cobalamin, is secreted by the parietal cells of the stomach. The pancreas secretes from the duodenum additional proteins enzyme which degrades the R binders holding on to the vitamin B12. The vitamin B12 then binds to IF for the remainder of its journey through the small intestine. Then it reaches the ileum. The vitamin B12 IF complex passes unchanged down the small intestine and absorbed in the terminal ileum. It is absorbed by a process called endocytosis after attaching to a specific membrane receptor. Only B12 attached to IF will be absorbed. Absorption of vitamin B12 is very important. Here are the most common reasons for poor absorption of vitamin B12. Low stomach acid. Without sufficient HCl and pepsin, the animal proteins are bound to vitamin B12 are unable to be digested. In other words, you take your B12 and it doesn't break down. Therefore, it is not even work. It's not going to work. This means the B12 is not free to bind with other glycoproteins and move through the GI tract for absorption. Anyone with atrophic gastritis or hypochlorhydria as a result of conditions like H. pylori bacterium infection are at particular risk, as is anyone who has been prescribed proton pump inhibitors or acid-suppressing medications. The exocrine pancreatic insufficiency is without the production of sufficient pancreatic digestive enzymes, the body is unable to break down the cobalamin R complexes in the duodenum. As a result, the B12 cannot bind with the intrinsic factor and make its journey through the small intestine to be absorbed. The bacterial dysbiosis and gut infections, high concentration of bacteria in the small intestine, and certain parasites, example, Giardia, can consume the vitamin B12 before it's absorbed by the body. Surgical resection or disease of the distal ileum. Because B12 is absorbed at the lower end of the small intestine, any surgical removal, example, weight loss surgery, or an inflammatory condition, example, Crohn's or celiac disease, that impairs the distal ileum will also impair absorption of vitamin B12. The MTHFR gene mutation. Individuals with mutations such as MTHFR or MTRR have trouble with the process of methylating B12 into usable form. So while the body might absorb sufficient amounts into the blood, it is unable to absorb it into the tissues where it is ultimately needed. The tissues for skin and the vitamin B12 is very good for your skin. So your vitamin B12 levels might still be normal or high, however your body just struggles to use it properly. This has become a relatively hot topic recently, and one that many people may be too quick to jump to. Only once you're eating enough high-quality sources of B12 and have tested and healed your gut, whether that's H. pylori or SIBO, parasites, or other sources of inflammation, should you be looking to MTHFR gene testing? And if you decide to complete gene testing early on, make sure you're on to the gut testing as well. The functional lab testing you need to do to uncover root cause of vitamin B12 deficiencies. While you might have already done the standard blood test to identify the lower levels of B12 and iron, the important testing you need now is to find out the underlying root cause. These are a comprehensive stool test, organic acids test, and or SIBO breath test. If none of these tests reveal underlying gut dysfunction and or you have already healed your gut, that's when it's important to look to the MTHFR gene testing. How to correct a vitamin B12 and iron deficiency. Number 1, dietary sources high in vitamin B12. As discussed above, the average adult's daily requirement is 2.4 micrograms a day, with the best dietary sources of vitamin B12 coming from animal products. And although the exact rate of the absorbability depends on a person's digestive health, here are the top food sources of B12. Beef and chicken liver, salmon, herring, mackerel, sardines, tuna, trout, organic Greek yogurt, turkey, beef, lamb, and eggs. Now, what if you are a vegetarian? Well, then eat eggs, I would say, and have some yogurt and some tuna. Heal the gut to improve vitamin B12 absorption. Given the importance of a healthy, well-functioning GI tract from the absorption of vitamin B12, healing your gut could be the key to healing a B12 deficiency. The most common gut-related conditions I see that impair B12 absorption are the H. pylori. It lowers stomach acidity, and animal proteins that are bound to vitamin B12 are unable to be digested. The SIBO, the bacterial overgrowths in the small intestine, consume the vitamin B12 before it is absorbed by the body. The parasites, infections like Giardia, can also compete with the body for absorption of vitamin B12. If you have a vitamin B12 deficiency and also suffer from GI-related symptoms, then it is advisable to have a practitioner order some functional lab tests to identify the potential gut infections or other imbalances. Only once you have identified the underlying cause of the vitamin B12 malabsorption and deficiency can you work to eradicate the infection and heal the lining of the gut. While healing the lining of the gut, I often recommend supplementing with HCl and digestive enzymes to help B12 absorption from food sources. Supplement B12. For those with permanent B12 malabsorption, such individuals with MTHFR gene mutations, vegans, vegetarians, IBD, or ileum resection, B12 supplementation is generally recommended. For anyone healing their gut to correct the B12 deficiency, a short-term supplementation might still be advisable, depending on your current B12 levels and amount of gut healing that is required. When looking for B12 supplements, be sure to look for it in the form of methylcobalamin rather than cyanocobalamin. This methyl B12 form is typically the easiest for the body to absorb and utilize. You understand the simple thing that you need to do here if you're going to take a B12 supplement? Be sure to look for it in the form of methylcobalamin rather than cyanocobalamin. The methyl B12 form is typically the easiest for the body to absorb and utilize, given the biggest impact for your B12 levels. There are 3 main ways you can get your B12 supplementation. orally in capsule form, easiest to find at the store, available on Amazon or iHerb here. And iHerb, Australia company, and they have herbs, iHerb. And sublingual drops, recommended for those with SIBO or other gut infections or imbalances that affected absorption. Normally available via practitioners of available injections, recommended for most serious cases of deficiency, including pernicious anemia and severe depletion causing neurological disorders. And this sums it up now. If you suspect you have a vitamin B12 or iron deficiency, the first step is to get tested. If you are deficient in B12, step 2 is to identify the underlying mechanism or cause of your deficiency. Once the root cause is identified, the appropriate form of supplementation, dosages, and length of treatment can be determined, as well as any gut healing and rebalancing that needs to occur to heal the root cause. I hope you found this post useful and continue to work towards vibrant health minus the B12 deficiency. Healing the gut is a journey. If you are ready to begin yours, please head to the Work With Me page to learn more about how I work online with clients in many countries to test for treat the many root causes of IBS symptoms and other GI conditions.